Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the John Henry Soto Show. And my name is John Henry Soto. And as always, we come to you live here on Sunday night, 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And as always, I have my buddy, George Batista with me, and we are super excited oh man, this is such a cool human being, great musician. Has lived a life, like I was telling him before, that not many people have actually experienced what he's experienced, and we are just honored to have him on here. So we're very, very fortunate to have Mr. Tab Laven on the show today. So hang tight. I'm gonna actually we're gonna just get started because you know what happens. I start talking.
Yeah,
and
you
then
start talking and I forget
I
about it.
start yammering, and then all hell breaks loose. So we're actually just going to turn it over to George. George, I want you to give us a nice introduction to our guest, and then we'll just get rock and rolling.
Yes, exciting guest. This is going to be a really, really good one. So a little bit about Tabs. It's guitarist, singer, songwriter Tab Laven started his career at 21 years of age, performing worldwide with Mary Macgregor, Torn Between Two Lovers fame. He played banjo on Jars of Clay's Grammy award-winning album, The 11th Hour. He's recorded and performed with Michael Johnson, who had a top 10 pop hit with Bluer Than Blue, followed by several country hits in the 80s. Tab not only has recorded his own album of self-penned songs called Cranberry Red Balloon, which featured the likes of Art Garfunkel and steel guitar virtuoso Paul Franklin. He has also toured extensively with Art Garfunkel, which has included sold-out performances at Carnegie Hall, London's Royal Albert Hall, and the Olympia Theatre in Paris, France. And it is an absolute honor to have him on this program today. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Tab Laven. All right, there he is.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you so much for being here, Tab. This is
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. This is such an honor. I've had the honor of actually talking to you and having coffee with you and picking your brain on stuff as well. So I really appreciate you taking the time to spend with us. This is really going to be a lot of fun. Yeah, and I'm not. I'm a lot funnier sometimes off of here because just because. Try to remember. I'm extremely funny out there.
Well, that's right. That was you.
Yeah, because it's more inappropriate. So I can here I try to keep it a little chilled out. But thank you so much for being here. George and we were talking, earlier, and we talked to you a little bit about it, about how this is very unique situation. You know, not many people have lived that unique experience that you have. They haven't had those viewpoints that you've had, and that to me has always been fascinating. I'm going to ask George to ask the first question, and then I have a million questions to ask, but I want to give George a chance to say something.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you, John. I appreciate it. Sometimes he lets me talk on this show. So.
Every once in a while.
Every once in a while, exactly. So again, excited to have you on here. And obviously, you've done some amazing work. And one of the things I like to do in the beginning for folks who are not familiar with your work is talk a little bit about your inspirations growing up. Who were your musical inspirations and kind of what started you in the journey of music in general?
Well, it would have to be as a little kid. My uncle was a banjo player, and every time the family got together, we'd all sit around. He'd play, and my aunt would sing, and that's kind of where I got my first inspiration, because I would just be in awe and sit right in front of him and listen to him play the banjo. And this is back in the 60s, it was all those hootenanny and folk artists, and he was right in the midst of that. I think he had a group and they toured a little bit, but more just kind of did it for fun. But I was just enamored with him, and my mom played a little piano, but we all sat around and sang. And again, I was just like focused on his banjo, so that was really my first instrument when I turned, I think 11 or 12, and played the banjo. There's one right behind me here. It's all confusing, the camera here. Right there, my banjo. My son Quinn took that photo.
Oh, wow.
And that's my banjo that I've had. It's probably 45, 50 years old, but it's a nice old Gibson Master Tone. Which I play a lot, but mainly guitar these days.
Wow.
But then, the Beatles. I loved Glenn Campbell.
Yes.
And that was as I got a little bit older, into my early teens. And John Hartford, who wrote "Gentle on My Mind," I idolized him.
Yeah.
James Taylor, and
that's
two
my
guys
guy.
called Simon and Garfunkel.
Yeah.
And I literally would just take, and just back then you didn't have YouTube and all the stuff where you could just analyze and slow it down and have them showing you how they're doing it. It was back just listening to records and destroying your records in the meantime, trying to go over and over this part, and that's if you're lucky enough to figure out how to match the tuning of your guitar to what they were doing. And and I would just spend hours, come home from school and just sit in my bedroom and just hammer away at that stuff,
Wow.
And the same with banjo. I'm just all self-taught, can't read a lick of music.
Really? Never took formal lessons or anything?
Wow. Just all that ear, which, a few years ago, I talked to a friend here in Nashville. I said, could you recommend, I just want to get some music theory and really, because I can't read a chart, and he just said, why you've come this far and you've done okay for yourself, why do you need to? I go, well, yeah, you're right, I don't need to do that.
There you go.
He talked me out of it, because
I think I heard Paul McCartney say the same thing, and I think to Jimmy Fallon and or somebody, and they said to him, just think how far you could have gone if you would have learned.
That's right. Probably never heard of him if he.
Right. That's so true. I have too many things, but one thing I wanted, the whole your uncle playing, that was actually how I remember playing guitar. Was I saw my uncle.
I thought you knew my uncle.
I saw your uncle play, and
cool. I don't remember seeing you back then, but so.
I saw my uncle playing, and I had a few uncles that all played. And I remember when he came home, he came to the house one day and he put his guitar on the bed, and I went in there and I was like, what is this box? What's this thing? So I unlatched it and I kind of remember running my fingers through it, and it was like, it was like, whoa, and then he came in and beat the hell out. No, he didn't. but it was an amazing sound. It was like my fingers just made this thing happen, and it sticks with you, when you first get that.
Oh, yeah.
What is that magic? It's incredible.
Absolutely.
I love it. That's awesome. So during that time, because you didn't study music, so were you going playing the records and slowing them down, but how did your fingering? Because that was always my challenge. Was I used to see their fingers, but it was reversed. So I didn't know. Yeah. I had to go like this. So I would get a mirror and see if I can get my fingers to look like the guy on the television.
Yeah. See, but I was doing this even before there were VCRs, so you really couldn't tape anything either. So it was just strictly, and banjo. Well, you use your finger picking. It's
right. That's all it is. Yeah.
5-string banjo. So took a long time to figure it out. I mean, I had the Earl Scruggs How to Play the Banjo book. I had the Pete Seeger 5-string banjo.
Pete Seeger,
legend from the late 50s or early 60s, but I still have it somewhere here. But that's when I first learned. And I had no concept, because they would do the tablature on there, which finger you pick which string with, and even that was baffling to me. So and I didn't have any recordings of what I was trying to learn on the pages, so it was excruciatingly slow. And, if I would have had a teacher back then, I'm sure I would have, taken off. But, I was in Minneapolis where I was living. There weren't a whole lot of bluegrass bands to go out as a kid. You hear about all these great players in Nashville in the South, but they had the advantage of, their uncles, and aunts, they all played in bluegrass bands, and they, everybody got together, and it was, a jam session that we didn't really have that.
Do you ever wonder about, because I don't know if I would have been playing how I play, because I'm self-taught as well. Mm-hmm. If I had all the stuff that's out there now, I almost feel like it's damaging in a way. I just feel like we went through it. We went through it, and you had to figure it out.
Well, when I need to learn a part now, I do go on to
Sure.
YouTube,
Yeah,
and
I do that too.
I'll
Yeah.
watch, who's the Australian guitar player, drawing a blank right now. Amazing guitar player. But so I can watch him and see exactly what he's doing. And I do utilize it now because it makes it so much easier and quicker. You can see exactly what he's doing. You can slow it down. And so they have a huge advantage that way, but the struggle isn't as great now, for people learning, but it doesn't really mean they can't be great guitar players, because they are. I mean, there's some great, incredible, 13, 14-year-old guitar players. It's like, wow, how did they get so good?
I know.
They have all these different ways they can learn now. So,
yeah, I love that, George.
Interesting. I'm wondering, during that time, so what was your goals during that time? Was it singer-songwriter type of thing, at least first growing up in that or around that time?
Not really. I just had the love of the banjo and the guitar,
So it was just playing. Okay.
Playing, and I did play with some friends in high school, and we'd go over to each other's house after school and sit, in their bedroom and play guitars together and learn that way. But we were all just kind of doing Beatles songs and Simon and Garfunkel songs and James Taylor and what was that you just played? That's cool. What chord is that? And likewise to me is so. So that was fun, and I really wasn't in a band at all in high school. I just was going home and just playing the banjo and guitar. I don't know why. I just had the love of doing it and the need to do it. So that's all I did.
It's interesting because John and I talk about it a lot, where our mindset was at the time, even though, we eventually, and it's funny how we talk about uncles, because my uncle was the first band that John and I actually played together with.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, because it was, so we all have the uncles that actually played. But what's interesting is John and I always talk about on this show was our obsession with being good musicians. Yeah. We weren't necessarily like into, okay, we're going to be rock stars and all that. Our main focus was about just being good. We wanted to be as good as, and because of that, we always talk about, we went from like beginner to like fairly advanced in a very quick time frame, because we used to literally practice like 7 or 8 hours at a time, So I think that the mindset sometimes of, because a lot of younger people, like, they just want to be a rock star. They just want to be the greatest singer, songwriter, whatever. But I always said, focus on being good at what you do. The rest, will come later as you go. So it's a very interesting, concept.
Yeah.
So I just want to acknowledge TC MacPappy here, who says, so talented.
My friend Jeff.
Cool. And
Tommy Emmanuel. That's the guitar player I was trying to. Thank you, Jeff. Yeah. Appreciate it. Amazing guitar player. He's from a different planet. And that's what I found when you're down here. Just the talent of some of these guys. Just they're from a different planet.
Tommy is. I listen to him all the time, and he's he's like really just amazing. He's incredible, and he also he plays with Bonamassa sometimes. He'll be on stage with, and he puts on the electric. He's
great.
Like everything, and then he does these very delicate, instrumental pieces.
And it's like those guys they don't even think about what they're going to do. They just do it. It's just flowing through them. That's what I don't get. Especially like Bela Fleck, when he plays banjo, and the banjo is a different kind of instrument, and he can just play it and just come up with solos, and it's like, wow. And he's not sitting at home beforehand, I don't think, learning the solo he's going to do for that song. He just shows up and plays it. I mean, it's incredible.
It's amazing, but I watched you play something recently. I think yesterday, maybe it was. I think, and I was thinking the same thing about you, because you were playing. I was like, it was so effortless, and the movements, but there was a voice in there. You had the bass, the lead, the rhythm, all in there, and it was. I was thinking the same thing. So
thank you.
You're welcome.
A level down. I'm Tommy's up there. I'm here.
Well, Yeah.
I need to tell my wife to bring the power cord down from my computer so I don't.
Oh, so you don't, okay.
Okay.
But we can continue here.
So
So
yeah, I mean, people. I think uh, because we have this internet now, you can watch something. If I was just starting out and I saw Tommy on a YouTube video when I was,
we
I
wouldn't
would
be
be
talking
like,
right now.
I would be like, what am I doing? I'm gonna go learn how to crochet or something.
Yeah.
Um, you
It
know,
can be. It can be kind of discouraging, trying to emulate a guy like that.
yeah, it can be inspiring too. I mean,
Yes.
Oh,
not to
absolutely.
say-
Yes.
I mean,
Like,
I've learned
I
to play
saw
the
Steve.
songs that
Yeah,
impresses people when I play it.
yeah. I think we saw Stevie Ray Vaughan on a VHS tape that we rented, and I was like, oh, I didn't even know what he looked like other than the
Yeah.
CD that I had, and we put it on, and George remembers because he was there, and we were kids, and I was just looking at it like
Yeah.
I could not believe. Then he went behind the back and he did the whole thing
Yeah.
on the neck, and his effortlessly, like there was no where he stopped and the guitar began. It was just his one thing. It was just his one thing, and it inspired me. Yeah, that inspired me. So it didn't really discourage me. It inspired me, but
Cool.
it is an amazing thing.
Yep.
George, you
Wow.
gotta.
Yeah, absolutely. So now you're on the road. You're starting to play professionally on the road and stuff. How did you get out? Your first like big gig and big tour and that type of thing.
My first gig was it was a fluke. I when I was growing up, my neighbor across from where I lived with my parents, the neighbor across the street was in the music business, and he was a music manager, and he was managing this young girl named Mary Macgregor, who was from St. Paul, Minnesota. And she was at that time was singing background vocals for Peter Yarrow, Peter, Paul, and Mary. And Peter had written all these female type songs for a project. And so he asked Mary if she'd like to go in the studio and sing them for him. So we had a demo of them. And one of the songs was Torn Between Two Lovers.
Nice.
And Keith, the neighbor of my parents, who was kind of my mentor back then, kind of encouraging me to play and teaching me about the music business, from the business end of it. And but he was they tested that song at radio stations, and because they got a record deal on it, if I remember right. And the first song they released off of that was Torn Between Two Lovers. And,
Wow.
It just took off. And
Yeah.
and Keith had called me back in Minneapolis because I was still living at home with my parents. I was 20 years old, and I was one of those guys sitting in the basement, but with my guitar, but not on a computer. And he said, "Could you do me a favor and drive my car out to LA, where I'm going to be here for a while because your career's taking off, and they're putting a band together, and if you could just come out and I'll fly you home. They're doing the Tonight Show on Friday night, or Thursday or Friday night, and they're rehearsing for that." And I go, "Wow, that'd be great." And so I went out there and I went to the rehearsal at SAR in LA, and I'm trying to make this not a very long story for you.
No, please.
Go right ahead.
So anyway, so I'm sitting there just watching the rehearsal, and I had brought my guitar along as I did. I brought my guitar everywhere I went. It was always at my side, to school, to my grandparents, any holiday we went, I always had it with me, and would just go sit in a room somewhere and play. And so I'm watching the rehearsal, and the guitar player they had was an electric guitar player, and he's going, "Well, this needs an acoustic guitarist on this because I don't play acoustic guitar." But before I went out to Minneapolis, or left Minneapolis to go to LA to drive his car out, I had a acetate of her record, that was before tape and all, or before 8-tracks and cassettes and stuff to listen to demos of the stuff they would do to acetates. And so I had that, and I would listen to those songs. So I just, as I always did, I was just learning all the guitar parts on the record, the acoustic guitar parts. So, and Mary Macgregor, who kind of knew me a little bit, she said, "Well, Tab, you play acoustic guitar. Can you do this?" And the lead guitar player asked do you read music? Because they're all looking at charts. And I, already knowing the songs on acoustic guitar, I said, "Yeah, I can read music," knowing that I could do. It was just in the right place at the right time. And so I went up, and he's like looking at me. He said, "That's not even on the chart." And I go, "Well, you know, I think I confessed to him a little bit that I had listened to some of the songs. And anyway, I got the gig, and a day later, I'm at the Tonight Show.
Wow.
You know?
My gosh.
And so that was how I got my first gig.
And you're like not nervous?
Oh, I was in a different. I was, you know, not even. It wasn't even real to me. You know, just like. And it was my first professional gig was that, and ended up going on the road for about 4 years with her all around the world.
Wow.
Following, supporting that single, and she'd released
Typical
a couple
story.
other songs. What's that?
Typical story. That's
Yeah,
that's how it happens with everyone.
Naturally.
Yeah, you know, and Mary and I became really good friends. And I mean, she's older than I am, a bit older, but and I still stay in touch with her. And she's, I don't think she's really singing anymore. Maybe she is just at some local things out in California where she lives. But we do stay in touch. And like I said, I was with her for 4 or 5 years, and then moved back to Minneapolis. So I had gotten married and had a daughter out there, and didn't want her to go to school in LA. So we moved back to Minneapolis where she could start her schooling, and then just did some bands up there, and that's chapter 1.
I love that.
Wow.
You know, it's when you we talk about this a lot, about saying yes to stuff, you know, like showing up, like just showing up for stuff. So when you hear things, I mean, that would have been somebody say, "Well, you drive my car all the way over," you know, somebody would like, "Oh, I'm not going to go all the way down there."
Well, yeah.
You know, and there's goes that opportunity. You know, it's
Yeah, I mean, I had no idea that was going to happen, you know, but
right.
the fact
That's
it with me, and I was confident enough to say, yeah, I can do that, you know, because I already knew the stuff, and I was confident in my ability at that time to be able to say yes, and it was because I just play acoustic guitar and fingerpick. Yeah, I'm not a lead guitar player. I don't own electric guitars. So I knew, and I do it well. And I knew back then, even at 21 years old, however, at 20 or 21, I was confident enough that I could do it, you know, because I spent so much time, as I still do, you know.
Yeah.
And that's how I kind of have gotten all my gigs, just being really confident that I could cover that, knowing that it's the kind of gig I could do. I mean, if somebody was looking for an electric guitar player, and we need this needs an electric guitar player, Tab, can you do this? I would say no, I can't do that.
Right.
I do, so.
So bring us to how Mr. Art Garfunkel found you.
Well, that's
found him.
Well, that's another. It's just being in the right place at the right time, you know. And as they always say here, you know, you must be present to win, you know. And that's the reason I moved down to
prepared.
Yeah, and prepared, and be confident that you've got it together enough that if an opportunity comes up, you can go, yeah, I'll try out for that, you know. I had moved to Nashville as a songwriter, and I was living in Sylvan Park, which is in West Nashville here, and I was renting a bedroom from a woman just rented out to songwriters and musicians, and her fiance at the time was a songwriter named Buddy Montlock, who's had some moderate success in the folk world. He's a fairly well-known writer in that, and I just met him the first time. He came over, and she introduced me to him, but let me back up a little bit. When I was still living in Minneapolis, I saw Art Garfunkel on a PBS special, and it was Across America, and it was him doing a show with his band, and his band guitar player at the time was Eric Weisberg, and you know, famous. He's the guy that played the banjo part on Dueling Banjos. Wasn't him in the movie, but he did the soundtrack for it. So he's a reputable musician. But when I saw the show, I was sitting watching in Minneapolis by myself, and I'm said out loud, "That's my gig. That's my gig," because I know all those parts.
Look at that.
Forwards and backwards, upside down. I just kept saying, "That's my gig," you know.
Wow.
And so here I am, 3 or 4 years later in Nashville, and she's introduced me to Buddy Montlock, my landlord, and I think Carol said, "Yeah, Buddy's working with Art Garfunkel." He said they're in the studio. He's here in town writing some music together, and right away I go, you know, wow, I love Art. Can can I tag along and just come to the studio and meet him? And Buddy said, no. he's that kind of guy. You know, you just don't. He's a bit of a character, and he said he just doesn't. He's there to work, and he doesn't. He's a very focused guy. So I said, well, if I give you my name and number, if you ever hear that he's looking for another guitar player, this is my shot. You know, from the when I saw the TV show, I thought this is my chance. It's come. The planets are aligning right now. You know,
right.
And I said, does he still have Eric Weisberg on guitar? And he said, yeah, but you know, it's just session guys here in Nashville. But and I said, well, if you ever hear that he's looking for a guitar player, you know, can I give him my name and number just so I can put my name in the hat to audition for him? And he said, well, yeah, he's had his guitar player for a long time. So, but yeah, you give me your name and number. And I wrote it on a napkin from the kitchen, and he put it in his pocket. And I thought, well, who knows? And later that day, not exaggerating, later that day, I get a phone call from Buddy. And he said, you're not going to believe this, but after I left you and went into the studio and met Art, the first thing he asked me was, do you know any guitar players that could do this gig? And Buddy, well, as a matter of fact, because it was so fresh in his mind, pulled out this piece of paper. So I just met this guy. He said, we'd love to audition for you. And he said, oh, what's his name? He said, it's Tab. Okay. Well, let me keep this and I'll give him a call. And a little bit of time went by, and finally, I don't know how long, we're talking a few weeks, you know, and the phone rings, and it's, I'm standing in line at the bank in the Green Hills here, and it's Tab. Yes, this is Art Garfunkel. You know, I heard that you're interested in playing the guitar for me. It's like, this is a joke, you know.
Right. That's what
I'm like, stop calling me.
I would think it's George calling me.
You know, it was just that stupid. I mean,
wow.
So, you know, I got out of line at the bank and went and sat in my car. It's like, hang on a second, okay, Art Garfunkel, you know. He said, yeah, I would love to hear you play. I can come to Nashville, or you can come to New York. And I said, well, would you tell me what you want to do? And he flew to Nashville, and
wow.
I auditioned for him, and we were together. He just came in for the day. I picked him up at the airport, which I'm just like calling everybody I know. Guess what I'm doing? You know?
Right.
You know, and so I auditioned for him, and we spent probably 2 or 3 hours together and had lunch, and then I took him back to the airport, and he said, so we're going to Europe. Do you have your passport together? I didn't, but I said, yeah, I have my passport, and he just told Robert, gave me the itinerary and said, okay, well, I'm ready to go. You can take me back to the airport. And I'm just like, wow, I can't believe this is even happening, you know. And I drop him at the airport, and we really didn't talk a whole lot because he was tired and he wanted to get home. And he gets out of the car, and I said, so Art, can I call my mom and tell her that I'm working for you now? And he goes, no. He slams the door and he walks away. It's like, wow, okay. I don't know what that was about. It was just, and so of course all my friends are calling, well, how did it go? And I go, well, I thought it was going great, and I told them what had happened. And then, you know, of course, then I'm up all night. What did I do wrong? Did I say something in the car ride back to the airport? And then the next morning, bright and early, his manager calls me, you know, and says, Art loves you, you know. And do you have your passport ready? You got to get to New York right now, and let's rehearse, you know. Wow. And they said, well, Art doesn't want to do the hiring and the firing. That's what I'm here for. So he just wasn't comfortable saying yes. He just wanted to have me call you, you know, just for now.
Okay.
And, you know, and it ended up being a 20 plus years gig for me, you know, and mainly all overseas and all over the world, you know, and we become really good friends. And he's a character, and in fact, I'm flying out on Tuesday to go to New York to work with him. He's not working a whole lot anymore. He's not touring, but he's doing the gig in November at the Carlisle Hotel on the Upper East Side. It's like a 4 or 5 night run at the swanky Carlisle, and it's just a very small little setting. And it'll be me on guitar and a piano player, I believe. I'm not sure who it is, but and it's a family show. He's got his wife singing and his two sons, James or Junior, and who's got an amazing voice. And then his youngest son, Bo, is also going to sing and play a little piano. So it's kind of a family affair. So it should be fun.
Wow.
That is so incredible.
I love it.
That's so incredible. I mean, you must have been. I mean, I could just imagine the beginning of that tour, that first time that you got on a big stage.
Yeah, I mean, with an artist like that, I mean, I'd already been with Mary Macgregor for a number of years, and we played, big, opening act for a lot of big names back then, and so it wasn't that new to me, but to be with an artist of his stature, somebody that I like when I was 12, 13 years old, I was just a huge Simon & Garfunkel fan, and then he released like 14 solo albums, Art did, and just always followed him. He's a big Jimmy Webb guy. He does a lot of Jimmy's songs, and I've gotten to meet Jimmy, and
oh wow,
that's the kind of one of the perks of working with Art is you get meet a lot of cool people.
Yeah.
I had backstage in LA, Jack Nicholson walked up to me and introduced himself to me. It's like,
nice.
Oh, I'm Jack.
Holy cow.
And I'm like, oh yeah, I know. But he complimented my playing, I knew he was there because he was sitting literally right in front of me, but he came back and introduced himself, and it was kind of a cool moment for me, because I was always a Jack Nicholson fan. But they're like, that's one of his best friends. So.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
Through all those years of the tours and just working with him, was there some specific things that you learned about his process that made you better as a musician?
Absolutely. He's very, very focused. When you're on the road, it's just about the show. He's calling you during the day, talking about the set and what he wants to change and make a little bit better. He's always just strives for excellence, and he expects that of his players. And I learned that. And there were a few times where I'd just be kind of off thinking about something else, and he would stop and go, "You're not in the room with me right now, are you?"
Wow.
And he can feel it. He knows it. And so I really learned that. He's very focused and takes it very seriously. And every time he does Scarborough Fair, he sings it like it's the first time that he's sung it to, and the audience has heard it for the first time here. He's very, very focused.
Yeah, I noticed that about him when you watch him. Old clips, and I'm a huge Simon & Garfunkel fan, just like my mom was. I mean, we were just all the time, and whenever you would see him, it was like, like you're right, like it was his first time performing that song. And the first time I really realized how massive was when they did the first Central Park. Like I knew them, I loved them, we had the records, but I had no idea. I mean, Central Park was a madhouse. It was like so incredible. And then that came out on VHS, and then we had that playing all the time. Just the focus, you're right, it was just an incredible. But to sing some of these songs are complex songs. They had a lot of layers to them, especially vocally. The inflections on some of these songs are very, very specific, and I don't really see a lot of people covering these types of songs because they're kind of difficult to cover.
Yeah, he's thinking about each note when he sings it. He's not phoning it in ever. And it's all. Before we walk on stage, he's backstage. He's nervous, and it's like it's the first time he's gone on stage. But that's part of his routine. He is nervous, and he said, "This is the worst part about the whole show. But once I walk on stage, I can breathe and deliver." And he always said, "I want my notes and you, Tab. I want you to. We're both aiming to split that arrow that's already in the middle of the bullseye. We need to hit it again, so we split it." And when we hit it, it's golden. He's a real perfectionist, and I've learned that about being with him forever. Just never phoning it in and being focused on it, and take it very seriously. So when I learn a song or he throws a new song at me, I literally spend hours and hours and hours on the song. I never just show up with the chart and okay, I know it frontwards and backwards and inside out, upside down. just so I can expect or anticipate anything he may throw that he wants to change. You know, I'm ready. I already kind of know the song enough that I can, you know, be pretty comfortable changing it, whatever he needs to do, but and also recommend things to him, you know, which isn't very often because he's already pretty much set in his mind what he wants to do on the song. So, but it's been a learning experience, you know.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. And one of the things that you probably also have taken from is the impact that it has on others. When you're there, his impact on people cry.
Oh, I know.
And you see them. People cry. You know,
well,
I mean,
he's very much into it's what happens between the notes that he's singing. Just the room is you know, he doesn't want it filled up. He hates going to hear a band and everybody's playing. Like, you know, he went and saw Billy Joel one time. He said, I wish it was just Billy on piano.
Yeah.
That'd be such a much cooler show.
Yeah.
Just to hear him playing by himself. And that's kind of what Art does, but he, you know, he doesn't play. So he's got me on acoustic guitar. Most of the time it's just he and I on stage. And it's what happens. The magic is the notes between the notes, just that silence, and let people really absorb it in. And there's many times I look down in the front row and sometimes I almost start crying because I see people so emotional.
Yeah.
And it's not just on Bridge Over Troubled Water, but every time Bridge Over Troubled Water, I guarantee look down and guys and men and women are crying.
Yeah.
It's, you know, it resonates with them, their past or something, you know. It's just, and he delivers it so beautifully, and they're watching the guy that did it. And and every time he sings it, it's beautiful, you know.
Yeah.
That's because he's not phoning it in. He's delivering it.
Right.
Know, it's a big difference.
It's authentic every single moment.
Every single time. Yeah.
Every single time. I saw him do a Old Friends.
Yeah.
With Paul.
Yeah.
I was like, I was like weeping. I was like, man, and it was just so. But you know, the communication is so strong.
Yeah.
You know, they really want it to hit every single time.
Yeah.
And it does. And that's perfection, and that's professionalism.
Yeah.
Oh, it's amazing. I love it.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about I mean, we can talk hours about that.
Yeah.
But I want to also talk about the current projects that you're working on as well. I know you're going to be with Art Garfunkel in November at the Carlisle in New York City, which is an awesome room. And you have also a project that you're putting together here.
Yeah, I'm doing with a guitar player named Jeff Dayton, who's from the same neck of the woods where I grew up outside of Minneapolis. And he's a great guitar player, great singer, and a good entertainer. He's been around Nashville for quite a while. He was Glenn Campbell's band leader for 15 plus years and his second guitar player. So it shows you how good Jeff is.
Wow.
And he's, you know, I'm just blown away that, because being such a Glenn Campbell fan, I met Glenn once years ago, but that here I am working with his guitarist that he had for 15 plus years. And so, you know, I'm also working with a guy named Eddie Kilgallen, and Eddie works right now with Montgomery Gentry, the country band.
Oh, yeah.
Unfortunately, Troy Gentry passed away a few years back, you know, so it's Eddie Montgomery out on the road. And Eddie Kilgallen is the keyboard player and the road manager for him, but he and I have known each other for a while. And Eddie is also, he wrote a #1 George Strait hit. He was also in a band called Ricochet, and they had 2 or 3 pretty big hits back in the late 80s or early 90s. I'm not sure when, but so he's a very seasoned pro, great singer, great piano player, and probably one of the funnier guys I know. And he and I first got together to try to work out a duo to do some corporate gigs. Excuse me. And then kind of during that process, I thought, well, this would be kind of fun to do go try to book this into theaters. But to me, the hook wasn't there to, you know, why would this older couple in their 60s or 70s buy a ticket for $50 to go see a show? What would that show be that we would that they'd want to come to see us, and just it wasn't there. And then Eddie and I started talking about adding a third person, and then Jeff Dayton kind of popped into our mind. So I went out and saw Jeff playing one night here in Nashville, and pitched the project to him, and he loved it. He said, "Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's put a show together, and we'll each pick 6 songs, like from the catalog, Art's catalog. He'll do Glenn Campbell, and Eddie will do some Ricochet songs. He's a huge Barry Manilow fan, and he also writes with David Pomerantz. It's written quite a few of Barry Manilow's songs.
Yeah.
So our show will be doing those songs, and I'll do Simon & Garfunkel and Art's solo stuff, and then we'll tell behind the scenes stories about the songs, and just some interesting stories about like Art that nobody knows about,
Yeah.
and all very positive stories, as well as Glenn. And I've already heard a lot of the stuff from Jeff, and Glenn was a pretty funny guy, just down home Southern boy, but just a monster player, and just his history,
it's a session player.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah. And Jeff got to be a big part of that whole run. So we've been getting together and working out a show, and we've already got some people, booking agents interested in our show. It would be Songs and Stories, and we'll hopefully travel around the country, if not the world.
There you go.
But I think it'd be a pretty cool show. I think
the
3 of us going out and performing. We all play on each other's songs, and just even the rehearsals are fun. We're just laughing and already telling stories to each other, but which ones are keepers and which ones, we can't tell that story.
Yeah.
But so it'll be a fun show, and we're looking probably after the first of the year to try to do that and book some theaters. And so there you go. That's my latest thing.
Right.
And in the meantime, I'll do some Art shows still. He's doing some one-offs here and there, but as far as touring, going on the road for 3 or 4 weeks at a time, it's not going to happen.
Yeah. Well, that's exciting. I'm looking forward to that.
Me too.
I want to actually, I want to talk a little bit about your music, because you have this great.
There it is.
I don't know. We call it CD. We call it a streaming.
I don't know what it is now. It used to be called a CD.
Yeah,
I still like calling it records.
Yeah, records. Yeah.
Yeah, I like this.
I always say record.
Cranberry Red Balloon. So tell me a little bit about this, and what was the inspiration behind it, and some of the players.
Well, I originally started writing for a project back in Minneapolis years ago. It was called the Music Workshop for Kids, and 5 or 6 of us got together, and we each kind of came in with 2 or 3 songs that we wrote for the project, and it kind of was born there. And when I moved to Nashville, I had played some of those songs for a publisher here, and she said, I love your stuff. You need to do your own record on this. How many more songs do you have that you've written? I said, well, not really any, but I'll certainly write some more. And so that kind of got the project going. And then my wife Annie was really involved in it and really pushed to get it done, and was the driving force behind it, really. So I guess she'd be called the executive producer. But and then we did it here locally with Mills Logan on engineering, and his studio in his home, and also I was encouraged because I'm good friends with John Cowsill, who at that time was playing drums with the Beach Boys, and
Nice.
And so I got to meet Mike Love and Bruce Johnston. And Bruce Johnston, for some reason, we were talking about music, and I said, well, I write some kid songs, and he said, well, let me hear some of it. And so I gave him a tape, and he said, well, I love it. Just when you record it, let me know, and I want to come and sing background vocals on it.
Wow.
Which he did. He sang on one song. He did it on the road. He had a little mini studio with him, and sang some background. And I was, I don't know that I would have ever been able to get Mike Love to do it, but his son Christian, who was on the road with them as well, sang. So it was Bruce Johnston and Christian Love singing background vocals on one song, and then John Cowsill, who was with the family band, the Cowsills, back in the '60s.
Yeah.
That the Partridge Family was based on, by the way. He and his wife Vicki Peterson. I'm name dropping here big time, but his wife started the Bangles.
Wow.
Vicki Peterson. She was the lead guitar player, and they're married. So they sang on a song, and then Art sang on the title track. And it was because Annie said, "Oh, you should have Art sing on this." And I said, "There's no way. I'm not going to ask him." You know, she went over the phone and picked it up and called Art. Because Art loves Annie. You know, he said, "Well, of course I will, Annie. I'll do that for you." You know? So he, you know, he recorded it because let me hear the song and don't be upset if I say no. And a couple days later, he called and said, "Okay, you got me. I love the song." It was called "Cranberry Red Balloon," and so he recorded his vocal parts in. Actually, maybe he recorded them here in Nashville. I can't remember, but so he's on the title track, and then Bruce Johnston and the others, and then I have who's the pedal steel player? Paul,
yeah, Paul Franklin, yeah.
Paul Franklin, he's playing on it, and Jimmy Lee Sloas, I think is his name, the bass player. He's like the top session guy in town, and some really great players, and it really turned out well. And that was about 10 years ago, I guess. So it's still, you know, it's not the typical kids record where there's, you know, a lot of adults listen to it and they love it. And, and it's just very kind of soothing, very acoustic. You know, wrote all the songs. I'm playing acoustic guitar, and I had some help on some of the songs with some friends of mine. But it's all very acoustic and just beautiful. A guy named Charles Judge did all the keyboard parts, and just beautiful stuff that he came up with. And I just let them work your magic, do what you do, and you know, create here. And I let them do whatever they want to do with these songs, and it turned out beautiful. So
that's so great. And the studio is always that's a good way to work, where you kind of let the ones that do what they do what they do.
Absolutely.
And you can.
That's why they are doing what they're doing.
That's exactly right. Exactly.
You know, and it's interesting to watch them do it, because they know enough because they want to know who else is playing on the tracks or is going to be playing on the tracks. So they leave places open, knowing what those guys are going to do, because they've all worked together. So they just, it's amazing that they'll just leave places open and not overplay, but just very light. And then they fill in the blanks as you go to the other studio, have this guy play. Like Paul Franklin, he just came over, and he was interesting because he came over to the studio to Mills Logan's studio, and he said, I got an hour because I'm heading to the airport, but just play, never look at a chart. He said, just play. It was like 4 songs he played on, and he just rolled the tape, and he just started recording, you know, and okay, roll it again. He did like 4 passes, and just pick and choose what you like, and let's do the next song, you know. It was pretty amazing, and just stuff he was playing. It's like we had stuff we couldn't use. Is like, it was so beautiful what he was doing. It was hard to choose what to use, you know, but it was pretty amazing to watch.
It's a good problem to have.
Yes, yes, exactly.
That's awesome. So, all right, folks, right there. There's the website, there's the record, and there's where you can find the world of Tab Laven.
There you go. It needs to be updated. I haven't been on the road for a while, so I haven't really updated it. But it was a pretty active website for a while. But it's still
it's still.
I'll put these dates at the Carlisle in there, but it's got some great pictures from the road and pictures of Art and myself, and and some blog that I was writing, and
the trio coming up.
And the trio that'll be part of that as well. So
yeah, that's awesome. So one of the things that we always ask our guests is that, being artists, you know, we're always trying to influence other artists and people who are not artists, but maybe have been wanting to do art, or maybe they played a long time ago and just haven't picked it up in years, but been thinking about it. So one of the things that we always ask is, do you have any words for, you know, anybody out there that maybe is thinking of, like, you know, wanting to get back on, or the last 5 years have been a little challenging here, have been for everyone, for the whole planet. But just getting back on track and just playing music because of the importance of what art is and how it can help the world.
My advice, I mean, I play guitar all the time, you know. I'm always playing. I'm looking over in my music room right now, and there's 3 guitars sitting out there that I've been already playing all day, just for fun, you know. And sometimes I'll just play the same songs over and over again. But but just always stay ready, and the biggest thing is you must be present to win. You have to show up. But when you show up, it means showing up doesn't mean you're just there physically, but you've got to show up and this is what I do and this is what I'm good at, because I'm confident that I'm here saying I want to try out for this, and don't be afraid, because the worst somebody's going to say is no, sorry, and like if I knew Art was using an electric guitar player, I would have never have pursued it, but knowing that that's what I do and I'm good at it, and I was confident enough that I went ahead and gave him my name and number, thinking, well, if I ever do get a call. But it was just that I was there and I was able to do it. It's the same reason I moved to Nashville, because I was working with the writer James Dean Hicks, who was a big hit songwriter, and he still is. And he heard my stuff and he loved it. He said, well, come on down. I want to introduce you to my writers. And I did that a few times. And then finally he pulled me aside one day, because he gave me I could write at his office with his writers and introduced me to other writers to co-write here in Nashville. And he said, Tab, if you want to take this seriously, you need to be here, because when you get in your car and drive home again, most of these writers, first of all, they're not going to give you their great ideas because they don't know if they're ever going to see you again. And you just need to be here and change your license plate so it says Tennessee and not Minnesota. Because we want to know the real deal. Because when they see the license plate from a different state, it's like, well, how long are you here for?
Right.
How committed are you here? So the first thing I did was go out and get a Tennessee license plate, and it's just, you just must be present and network. I didn't do a whole lot of networking because I was just, I don't go down to Broadway and want to sit in, because I just don't do that. I don't really know how to jam or just take a tab. It's like,
right.
Take what and take it where, But, so I know what my skills are. So that's what I focus on.
Yeah.
And I'm really good at it at this point. So I'm just confident enough that I can say, yeah, I'd love to audition for you, But that's kind of what I would just say, is just really work at what you're good at. If it's learning all the different styles, then well, do that, because then you have a chance of being a session player,
Right.
Well, yeah, I think that's absolutely important, because especially for all the artists out there, because you created your opportunity there, right? You were prepared, right? We talk about luck being preparation and opportunity.
Absolutely.
You were absolutely prepared, and then you asked that right question right there at that spot where you said you could have not done that. But what you did was you put yourself in that position. You said, you know what, I'm going to throw it out there, and you created that opportunity. It was perfect.
Well, yeah, and when I thought about that, I was thinking, well, back in Minneapolis is when I created that opportunity, because I said it out loud. It went out to the universe.
That's right. There it is.
Right.
Exactly.
And even Art, in a later article just a few years ago, he said, well, how did you meet your guitar player Tab, that's been with you for so long? He said, I don't know. I think we were just on the same wavelength or something, because
wow,
look at that.
So there it is. It's just like the planets again. Just you could hear them clink into place, But he actually said that I guess it was just in the universe. So
and it definitely was.
You gotta postulate that stuff. I think
absolutely
that's the right word. But and just put it out there. Because hopefully it'll come back to you and you'll be ready for it when you hear that knocking. It's like you can so. Yeah, it's just you create your opportunities and just be ready for it.
Yeah, we love it. Yeah. Tab, see, we're almost at an hour.
Well, okay, stay tuned for hour 2, folks.
Right.
Definitely
we'll be talking about the Beatles.
Yes. Never met any of those guys. But.
We always mention the Beatles in every episode where we have. It's like,
well, Art was good friends with all of them. He hung out with all of them, like extensively, for long periods of time. So he's got a lot of stories that I've heard, which are fascinating about each of them.
Let's get them on.
We'll go that next time.
Yeah, next time, absolutely. Tab, thank you so much for being on. We really appreciate it. We'd love to have you back anytime, and especially when you get your trio set up. We'd love to have you on so we can talk, about it, and I'll be at whenever you're here in Nashville. I'll definitely be there.
All right, cool.
For sure, I'll start the wave.
Okay. I'm going to hold you to that.
Yeah. But thank you so much. Don't go away just yet, but thank you for being on. and we
All right.
appreciate it.
Thank you. Nice to meet you, George.
Nice to meet you, sir.
We'll see you in person sometime.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Take care.
Okay.
Man, you
Man,
said it
wow.
right too. You make your opportunities. You create.
Yes, that's absolutely 100% what he did. I love stories like that because
Yeah.
you see, it was nice the way he actually, he framed it all the way through, and you saw the opportunities that he was creating throughout his life.
Yeah.
And there it is,
It is. I mean, that's the thing, and that's one of the reasons why we do this, is because we want to inspire others to look at life that way and to say,
Yes.
I want to create my opportunity. What is my opportunity? All right, I'm going to get a pen and paper. I'm going to write down, this is what I want.
Yep.
And then start working on it. And you got to work on it, obviously.
Of course, of course.
You have to kind of put the work in. And he's playing every day. He's been playing every day since he was, probably born. So, I mean, it's definitely something that it goes together with that. I just want to acknowledge a few people that were on here before we head out. Phyllis says, hiya, John. Hi, Phyllis. And Tab is extremely talented. Yes, he is. Absolutely. Angel says, yes. Mary says, hello there, gentlemen. Hello, John. Hey, Mary. How are you? Awesome. I will check him and his music out. Absolutely.
Nice.
Thank you very much. And Sean Manuel, as always.
Say yes. That's it.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you all for tuning in. We appreciate you. As always, we'll be back next week. 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. John Henry Soto, George Batista, as always, a pleasure. Thank you very much, sir. I'll see you all next week. Take care. God bless. And as always, peace.